other questions on the Slido?
Chris, are you going to give me a countdown? We good? All right, there it is. All right, good evening. Glad you're with us tonight. Thank you for all of you who are joining us online, and we have a few folks here with us at the Village Church Fort Worth campus. We're just going to spend some time tonight walking through our proposed budget for 2021, give you a chance to ask some questions, but a couple things to prepare us for tonight that I want you to do. Take a look, if you will, at tvcfortworth.net, the website, /events/budget, and you can go ahead and download the slides that will be available tonight. So if you're watching at home or you're looking at this, you can have access to the information we're going to cover, and that will make it easier for you. Then also want to let you know that you can ask any question you want to on Slido. Our hashtag tonight is hashtag RSC, Redemption Story Church, budget. So if you go to Slido, jump on there, and we can field any questions that you have. We're going to have a time in a little bit after we present to you the budget for this year, questions. Before we do anything else, though, let's just stop and pray, and we just want to give thanks to God for his generosity towards us and the way that he's been so faithful through the members of the Village Church Fort Worth to provide us with everything we need. So will you pray with me? Father, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for the faithfulness of your people. Father, thank you that you're a God who abundantly provides for us more than we could ever ask for, and you're a God who, through his own generous grace to us, empowers us to be generous to one another. So thank you so much. Thank you for all those who've given faithfully throughout the year. Thank you that in the midst of a global pandemic, we've had such a good financial year. And Father, again, that's just because of your grace expressed through the generosity of your people. Father, more than anything else, we want to be good stewards. We acknowledge that every penny that we account for tonight and into the future belongs to you, and you have good purposes for all that you provide for. So give us direction, give us wisdom, give us insight as we talk about and think through how to spend the resources that you so graciously give us. More than anything else, Lord, let us worship you always through our giving and through the stewardship of the faithful gifts you've given us. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, before we do anything, I want to give you an idea of vision. One of the things that's really important to us here is that our budget really is aligned and expresses the vision that we have. And the vision that we've put together and we've prayed about, the elders over the past couple of years, really is a 5-year picture that we've painted. Now, the challenge with the budget is we can only do one calendar year at a time, but I want you to know that this year's budget that we've prayed over and worked over is connected to a 5-year vision. So you should have a slide, I think, that says something like the 1-year big picture vision, something to that effect. It's going to look a little bit different, what I'm going to read to you now, but let me paint a picture for you as to where we would like to be in 5 years. In 5 years, through the work of God, we desire to be a vibrant church devoted to making disciples who live to know Jesus and make him known. We will welcome and honor all people. We will love one another generously and sacrificially, denying ourselves and counting others more significant than ourselves as we pursue, practice, and proclaim a greater story. Now, here's what we're going to focus on tonight as we talk about our budget, this part of our vision. By God's grace, we will have 800 covenant members joining us for weekly worship services, with 80% of them participating and attending classes on a regular basis. Here's where we're going to focus tonight. Together, we will generously give $2 million annually to the church, 25% of which will be spent on benevolence needs and missions for the underserved and the unreached. So, as we begin to kind of paint a picture for you with our proposed 2021 budget for Redemption Story Church, we desperately and faithfully want to become a more giving church, particularly as it pertains to missions and benevolence. This year we are able to give 10% of our finances towards that end, and then this coming year, as you'll see, we want to up that to 12%, and we want to up that sequentially so that in 5 years we're giving away 25% of the dollars that come through the doors towards planting churches, serving the poor, making a difference in other communities, of which will be $500,000 a year. And so we're really excited about the opportunity of what we have to do together as God faithfully provides. Let me introduce who's with me tonight real quick. To my left and your right is Wilson Peppard. Wilson is an elder here at the Village Church Fort Worth. Will be an elder as well at Redemption Story Church. And one of the things that's critically important to us in the realm of finances is that we want our volunteer elders really to be in charge primarily of the budgetary process. We don't want this to be a situation where our staff goes and establishes a budget and then the rest of the church just serves as a rubber stamp to approve that. We think integrity really resides with our volunteer elders of overseeing primarily the budget. And so Wilson's going to share some of the information about our budget tonight. And Wilson, I'm just grateful for you, and I know you've put a lot of time in behind the scenes on working on this. Then also want to introduce Deanna Mitchell, whom you all know and love, our operations director. And Deanna's worked very hard tonight on putting this budget together. So here's what we want to do. We want to give you a picture of what we're proposing for 2021. We're going to be voting on this here in about 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Wow, it's coming up so fast. And we wanted you to have an opportunity to ask any questions. Again, you can do that through Slido, hashtag RSC Redemption Story Church, just RSC Budget. So I'm going to hand it off to Deanna now, who's going to give us some details as to how this year is going financially and what we're hoping for in the next year. Deanna?
Thanks, Dave. First of all, I just wanted to say what an honor it is to help steward the money that the Lord has provided through all of you. And so I just want to thank you for your generosity, and really excited to share with you what the Lord has done and what we hope He will continue to do in 2021. First of all, I'll just talk to you a little bit about where we are today, at least based on our first 3 quarters of 2020. So I'm going to show you a budget to actual report, if you want to go on to those slides there, and you'll see that the Lord has been so gracious and faithful through you in our all 3 quarters. We're above what we anticipated and projected in our contributions for this year, and so we're really grateful for that, especially in this pandemic year that's been so interesting. So you'll notice that we have a total of $942,954 at the end of quarter 3 as our total contributions, which is over $200,000 more than we anticipated. So praise the Lord for that. And then we'll go on and look at our expenses, our spending so far, all the way through quarter 3 of 2020 so far. And you'll see that I've broken those out into 4 categories: missions, ministry, ministry services, and personnel expenses. And I didn't break those out by quarter, but these, like I said, are actual as of the end of quarter 3, which was the end of September of this year. So you'll see, and actually there's an error on there, so all of the variants should have parentheses around them. We are under budget in every category this year, so we are over $100,000 under budget in all of our spending categories for this year, which is great. All of our ministers and departments have been really faithful to be diligent with their budgets. In addition, of course, like we've been shut down for a little while this year and unable to do some of the things that we anticipated, but all of this has helped us to stay significantly under budget, which is great. And then we'll go ahead and enter into the 2021 projections for the coming year. And we'll start with our contributions for 2021. And on our next slide, you'll see that I have based this information. I have 2 years, or this year and 2019. I also included 2018 in creating our budget contribution projections for the coming year. So we have about a 3-year average that I use to come up with our contributions. And for 2021, we would set our contributions projection at $1,210,271. And you can see that's just slightly less than our 2019 contributions, and definitely under what we hope and project to end with for this year in 2020 as well. So we want to keep our projection conservative, but also, just as Dave said, we want to be moving forward in this 5-year vision that our elders have set for us. And so we are trusting God for that, and knowing that He is going to continue prompt generosity as all of you are able to give. And so that's going to fuel our 2021 expenses. And we'll start next with our mission expenses. And as Dave said, our mission expenses for this coming year will comprise 12% of our total operating budget. And you can go on to the next slide and you'll see that that's going to be $143,325 for 2021. And what is going to make up that spending, if you want to jump to the next slide, first of all, we'll be contributing to conventions, the Southern Baptist Convention and the Acts 29 network as well. So those will be part of our mission spending. We also support 3 church plants this year. Northbrook Church, which we sent out earlier this year, Pillar Church in the Stop 6 area, and then Omni Fellowship, which is a church plant in the Cedar Hill area. So we're proud to be able to support and sponsor them as they are growing church plants. We also have 5 missionary families that we support and will continue in 2020. We have the Garrett family, the Lyon family, the Johnson family, Berry family, and Liz Polglace as well, and we'll continue to support them throughout the coming year. We also have community outreach that is a part of our mission spending for 2021. We hope to continue with Transform and with Trunk or Treat in the coming year, and of course, pandemic pending, for sure. But we also support UTA's Baptist Student Mission Ministry as well, and hope to be more active and involved in that in the coming year as well. And then finally, we have our benevolent spending, of course, which is in for our members and those in our church and also in our community as well. And then the remainder of that budget will go to what we've designated as church planting and sending, development, and strategy. So that will encompass all of the things that we hope to explore and do in the coming year. Is there anything you guys would like to add on the missions end of that?
No, I hope that people can really see in this that our heart would be to be generous in starting. And there's even a focus point that you can see here, maybe a threefold focus point. One is planting churches in the DFW area, even in the churches that we're now supporting, new churches kind of in proximity that you can drive to, pouring some money into community development, really caring for Eastern Hills Elementary. What a great opportunity the Lord has given us with Whitney Scott being there and just the relationships that we've established, and we'd love to serve them well. And then we just want to continue to see the Lord call people out to go to the nations, and we want to send missionaries into the field, especially with an emphasis on unreached people groups. And so, again, that's a little bit more forward, futuristic thinking, but we really want to put our money where our mouth is with those different ministries.
All right, good. Then I will continue on from there. From our missions, we'll move to our ministry expenses. And this will comprise 11% of our total operating budget for 2021. And on the next slide, you'll see that that will be a total of $137,000 and We're just going to move on. Yes, $137,130. There we go. Whew. So on the next slide, you'll just see some of the departments and things that make up this ministry budget. You'll see that it's comprised of our pastor elder ministry, our worship ministry, classes and curriculum are included here, our groups and connections, and also our next gen ministries, our students and our children's ministries are involved there. There's not really any significant changes in those budgets. Our ministry leaders are going to be continuing a lot of the same things that you are accustomed to as a part of the Village Church, but they are also looking to the future of Redemption Story. I know that they are being inspired and trusting the Lord and having them lead them in new ways. And so I'm excited to see the ways they're going to use their ministry budgets to benefit this body in the coming year. And And from there, we'll move on to our ministry services expenses. This is going to make up 29% of our total operating budget. And on the next slide, you'll see that that's a total of $354,779. Got that one. So this one can be kind of confusing. I know sometimes it's hard to know what makes up ministry services, so I thought I would detail out all of the departments and things that are included in ministry services. So on our next slide, you'll see that the operations portion of the ministry services budget is made up of our finance, our HR department. It covers all of our insurance costs and our security expenses as well. So all of those things will be included as operations. But also in our ministry services expenses, and on the next slide, we include facilities expenses, our communications, and technology and production departments as well. So all of those kind of go in to make up our ministry services budget. That one is considerably larger than the others that you can see so far, but that's basically what it takes to operate our church operationally. So that's all of that. And then the final category for 2021 is our personnel expenses, and that makes up nearly half, 48% of our operating budget. And that'll be a total of $575,037 for 2021. So included in our personnel expenses are, of course, salaries for our employees and the benefits that we afford them as well. The benefits that we include for our full-time employees, we are going to offer health benefits through what's called a QSERA. That stands for a Qualified Small Employer Health Reimbursement Arrangement. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We also offer our full-time employees life insurance, accidental death and dismemberment, and disability insurance as well. They also are offered retirement benefits through a 403B arrangement that we match for them as well. So back to that QSERA, let me just explain that a little bit, what that is. So it's very different from what they have been receiving from the Village Church, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be very helpful for them and cover their needs quite adequately. So basically, they are going to have the opportunity to select their own health insurance. That can be a traditional plan off of the exchange, that can be a health sharing ministry, that can be really, there's just a wide range of things that they can choose from that will be best suited for their family and their situation. And then they will be able to submit the premiums for those expenses to the QSERA for reimbursement for those costs, and they all have a range, or they have a limit each month that they will be allotted for those reimbursements. If there is money still available to them in the HRA after they've submitted their premiums, they will also be able to submit healthcare expenses to that for reimbursement as well. I feel like this is probably as close as we can get to the similar benefits that the Village Church has generously offered to our employees over the years. So we are giving them the maximum amount that we can do for that, and I think this will cover our families well. Is there anything you'd like to add on that?
You know, this is one of the bigger decisions that we had to make in rolling off and becoming autonomous is, you know, lots of things around benefits, and then, you know, as well finance and HR and things like that. And so, one, I want to thank Deanna for all the work she did. You know, the lay elders got to basically get a menu of different directions we could go in benefits with the pros and cons and costs and things like that. And health benefits are expensive. You know, you think you know that, and then you look at it and you go, whew. But ultimately, when you know, we look at that 5-year plan and we're going, okay, what is it going to be like for us to be a sending, missions-oriented church? I'm meant to have staff that is really committed. And so ultimately, where we landed was we think it's really important to provide as good of benefits as we can and good health insurance to our staff. And so ultimately, where we landed, it's a bigger budget number than I think we had originally thought or intended, but we think it's important and we think it fits in the 5-year plan. So part of that is just the challenge to myself and to everyone to go, hey, there are new things that we're taking on, rolling off. We think this is important. And so, we're going to support it.
Yes, I agree. The elders have just been really generous. I think this is, like I said, going to really take care of our staff and employees well, and grateful for the way that they are willing to provide in this way. So, good. Anything you would add? Okay.
Maybe just might be helpful for people listening. Maybe something you could do is just share how salaries and benefits were practically determined, just so people understand where the lines of, where just the boundaries are. So you Deanna, gave a total number as far as an aggregate number of what was working in our budget to the volunteer elders, and they worked through that. So maybe, Wilson, you want to just add how individual salaries and benefit packages were determined?
Right, so there was a lot. We're not starting from scratch. We have all previous salaries and previous benefits from the village, and so ultimately, working with Deanna, we took the sum total of that and looked through it, and Deanna had spreadsheets built out, and we walked through those one by one to figure out what was right for us as a smaller church and what it should look like. Roles changed, from going from a part of a mega church to a smaller church as well. So ultimately, the lay elders walked through all that in coordination with Deanna in making those decisions.
Sure, I would just add, so that 48% that we are designating for personnel, that's just a really great place for us to be. So I like to kind of think of no more than 50% for personnel. We've got about just under 30% for our ministry services, and then 20% for our ministries, which includes our missions as well. So we are really right on track with some good percentage ratios there. So I think we are in good shape to enter into 2021 and to set us up for many years to come. So.
For sure, I agree with that. And if you think about the 5-year vision, you think about the goal we want to get to, where we're giving more to missions and to church planting, and we're working towards that $2 million goal. Probably ultimately 48% isn't the personnel number we want to be at. That's, under 50% is kind of the rule of thumb for churches, so we're there. But if we're going to be really missions and sending oriented, we're in a position that if our giving does grow, that where we'll really be able to grow, as we talked about at the beginning of this, we're growing missions 2% this year, that will continue, 2, 3, 4, 5% a year. Keep bumping that up if the Lord wills.
I actually see a question on Slido here that I thought might be good to address right now. It says the personnel budget is much larger in 2021. Does that project hiring a worship minister, and if so, when? So the personnel budget is slightly higher than it was last year, but actually it does not reflect immediately hiring a worship minister. We're really grateful to the Hildebrands, and we have worked in a contract with them to be able to have our worship ministry needs met in that way for at least the interim time. And so we do not have a time frame for hiring a worship minister at this time. Is there anything you guys would want to add to that?
I'd say the other thing that's in the budget, it's okay if I don't let the cat out of the bag on the new role, right?
Sure.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. If you think about us rolling off and being an autonomous church, and you think about what's really going to grow, as far as finance, banking, HR, different things like that, the operations side of the world. So one of the new ads in it is a part-time position in working with Deanna in supporting operations.
Very grateful for that. Yes. Great. Okay, so our next slide, I think, just will round up the 2021 budget. You can see all 4 of those major categories there that we have established a balanced budget going into 2021. And like I said, I'm really grateful for the generosity of our elders, but I also believe at the same time we're being conservative and good stewards of what we anticipate to receive for 2021. And then the next portion of the presentation is really exciting. I want to tell you guys about the Village Church has established a roll-off gift for us as Redemption Story Church, and so I'll talk to you about what that's going to look like next. So first of all, on the next slide, you'll see that it's made up of, first of all, a property gift. So this property here at 2100 Morrison is going to be granted to us as Redemption Story Church, free and clear, which is amazing. That's an enormous gift in and of itself, but it's also going to include almost all of the stuff in it, which is even more generous and gracious on top of that. So if you can just imagine all of the equipment in here and furniture and things that make up our 2 buildings on this property, that's an enormous gift right there. So we will have no debt obligations when it comes to this property and all of the things in it, which is great. But there's more. So on our next slide, you'll see that they have also offered us a monetary gift. It is a conditional gift, but it's a gift of $500,000. So the way that this will work is we will be eligible to receive this entire gift if our 2020 actual net income, so at the end of this fiscal year, which is December 31st, if that is greater than or equal to what is our budgeted net income. And so if that amount differs, either higher or lower, then that roll-off gift will be adjusted. So if we are less than our budgeted net income, then they will adjust that to compensate for that shortfall. So that will come out of that $500,000 gift to compensate for that. If we are equal to or over than that budgeted net income, then we will receive the excess in addition to that $500,000 gift, which is really amazing as well. But there's more. So on our next slide, you'll see that there are 2 funds that have been designated and set aside for us as the Fort Worth campus. Some of you have given to these. The first one is the Multiply Fund, and that will be given to us as unrestricted funds. It is at approximately $135,000 to date. That we are not receiving a whole lot into that fund at this point, but it could be a little bit more by the time we roll off. And then there's also a Catalyst Fund that has been receiving funds, and that will be given to us as restricted missions spending funds. And that stands at just over $100,000 to date as well, and may change slightly before roll-off. So those are the 3 main categories of our roll-off gift. The next slide will kind of help put all of this together for you. So right now, based on our current giving, our contributions through quarter 3, and what I have as our budgeted contributions for the 4th quarter, our estimated end-of-year contributions are at $1.3 million. And our estimated end-of-year expenses, again, based off 3 quarters of actuals and 1 quarter of projected, just over $1 million, giving us an excess of $264,539. The 2020 budgeted net income, that's that number we have to hit in order to get the entirety of the $500,000 gift, is $40,671. And as you can see, I'm projecting that we will be well above that number there. So in addition, the Multiply and Catalyst funds there, I am estimating a roll-off gift of $959,602 right now. So of course that will change based on our 4th quarter numbers, but we are seated well to have an enormous gift financially coming our way, which will help us to start our year off really, really well and in a secure place. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yes, so if you think about the roll-off gift, as any person or church would want, you want to have, a rainy day fund. Typically, that's 3 months, 6 months. It's up to each organization to determine what that is. I think ultimately, Redemption Story Church is still working through that. But the good news here is that we start with this day one. Some of this is different things. The Catalyst Fund, that's really about missions and church planning, that will help us continue to grow that budget. I think the other important thing with the roll-off gift is, I know a question I've gotten is, hey, and when do I start giving to Redemption Story Church? And so the good news is that, the way the roll-off gift works is the giving you give through the end of this year effectively passes through in the roll-off gift. So continue giving to the Village Church through 2020, and then here in a few weeks, the information will start to roll out to set up giving for next year for Redemption Story Church.
That's exactly right. So we want all of our giving to go through the Village Church all the way through December 31 of this year. And as Wilson said, all of that will filter through to Redemption Story Church beginning January 1. So it's a great time to mention the Redemption Story Church app that will be launching pretty soon, and that will be where you will go to set up your online giving. So a lot of your information that is in the Village Church database will transfer over, but the online giving portion will need to be updated. But you will not be able to begin giving to Redemption Story Church until January 1, and we will provide you with all the information that you need to be able to do that. But yes, all of this will roll over to us in the coming year. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before I go to some questions?
Yeah, I would like to say two things about the roll-off gift that I know are obvious, so that's what I do. I state the obvious. The Village Church is so generous to us. If you think about rolling off and being gifted a building, and I don't know how much our building is. Have you ever, I know we're going to have to figure that out soon. We do insurance. But
sure, yes.
we have this amazing facility, amazing property that's been given to us free and clear. And then in addition to that, almost $1 million in cash. I can't think of any other churches that roll off to become independent that have such a generous beginning. And so, as you think of it, obviously give thanks to God, but let's also be really grateful to the Village Church for being so generous to us and setting us up so well for our future. And then the other thing I would say, the other obvious observation is the Lord has good kingdom work for us to do. He's entrusted us with so much in terms of just having a facility where we can make disciples and send people out, and then giving us such a great start financially. And so just pray that Jesus told us to pray, which is, hey, the fields are ripe unto harvest, but the labors are few. So we need to ask the Lord to send us laborers into the field, because we're going to have the opportunity to not only raise people up and send them out, but to finance them well to do significant kingdom work. And so if it's okay, I think I just want to stop and just one more time give thanks to God for such generosity. Will you join me in prayer? Father, thank you so much. You're so kind to us, and we're especially grateful for the Village Church. Thank you for our lead pastors, for Matt and for Josh and for Brian. Thank you for all the elders. Thank you for all the different campuses that have existed throughout the years. And thank you for this amazing opportunity to start. Lord, we know you don't give us this so that we'll be comfortable and so that we will just live in the status quo, but you have given us this to give away. And so we want to see your kingdom expanded across DFW and to the nations. For Jesus' glory. In his good name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions then at this point. There are a few of you here, so please feel free to come on up to the microphone if you have a question. And I know we have a few on Slido as well. The first one here is, will Redemption Story Church roll off from the Village Church with any debt obligations? So I think we've kind of covered that, but we will have absolutely no debt. The Village Church is being incredibly gracious and generous, and so we will not incur any debt. The only thing would be if we fall under that budgeted net at the end of the year, which I don't anticipate that we will. And so I think we'll be set up really well for the coming year. And then the next question on Slido is 2021 contributions seem conservative based on 2019 and 2020. Is that intentional or are real projections lower? And if so, what factors are influencing that?
Yeah, let me pull out my crystal ball real quick. It's always better to be conservative in that. There is a lot of unknown with rolling off, and so watching the trends over the last few years, they've kind of done this, and so I think maybe the way that looked, it looks like we're doing this, and there's a little more of a zigzag there, and so we'd rather put ourselves in a position that's conservative, that we can react throughout the year, right? If there's growth and giving is up or giving is down, it's easier to adjust up than it is to adjust down, and so I think ultimately that's why we landed where we did.
Yeah, one thing too that I've noticed in being a part of other churches before that have become independent is there will be transition. Regardless, a lot of times you start something new and people either come to the realization this isn't what I was hoping for, or one of the things that we've already seen happen here, and this isn't a bad thing at all, these are good things. People now, as we're moving towards a more localized expression of church, are beginning to think, well, maybe there's a church that's closer to me and where I'm living in the greater Fort Worth area. And so I think we can expect a certain degree of transition to happen in this year. I think that means that some people will not stay and will go, and not for bad reasons, but they'll go with a sense of calling to other places. And then as we experience growth, and I think growth will happen as well, typically what happens is the new people coming in don't quite yet give to the levels of those that are leaving. There's usually a seasonality to the increase of people that are going to come in and give. And so I think when all is said and done, I don't think that we'll necessarily have a net loss of people next year. I think we'll probably either be close to where we are today or perhaps a little bit higher, but we probably can expect for there to be a little bit less income coming through as people who've been here a long time, been faithful givers, move on, and new people come in, and it takes them a while to get established. And then, who knows what 2021 is going to look like financially. There's all sorts of economic models, and we don't know what to expect. So we thought the best plan would be to approach this conservatively, and if we have more than we expect, then we can adjust the budget mid-year if need be. We certainly don't want to sandbag in any way. This isn't about storing up money or storehousing money. This is about being faithful to what God has called us to do and giving it away, and so we want to be good stewards of that.
Absolutely, there's a lot of wisdom there. So as they said, I think just knowing that this is a transition year for us, and on top of that, it's an unprecedented time, really, in history. I think it's wise for us to budget conservatively, and yes, we are moving toward that bigger 5-year vision, and as we do that, we will adjust as we see the Lord providing for that, but for now, we think this is the best way to be good stewards of what God gives us. We have one more question on Slido so far. Feel free to jump in and add any others. The last one here, it says, are there ways the body can serve in areas that are being paid for currently? For example, mowing, cleaning, and maintenance. So when I think about some of these things, we do have incredible volunteers that come and help us with different maintenance needs and things like that. Great deacons and people that come and serve that maybe you don't see, but they are useful to us and come and save us considerable amount of money for smaller things. But just like maybe you would think about in your home, there are some things that you just need a professional to do. And so we're gratefully able to pay for those things and bring in those professionals when we need to. And mowing and things like that, yes, we could consider those kinds of things, but to provide some consistency, and really I see that as we want to be good stewards in this neighborhood as well, and maintaining our property in such a way that is clean and delightful and maintained well in our community. I just think it's a bright light in our community, and so we love to be able to do that and be that in this community here. And for cleaning purposes, especially right now during a pandemic, we really want to make sure that our facilities are sanitized and disinfected well, and so we will continue to pay to make sure that that is covered. We're so grateful for our volunteers on the weekends that come in and spray, and that's a vital part of that. But to have a cleaning team that is professional and will go throughout our next-gen building and all of our staff areas and things like that, and do a really great job of cleaning and disinfecting is just really important right now. So I'm grateful that we can afford to provide that and just have that level of safety and security here as well. Anything you guys might add to that?
Yeah, I think I hear the question because I think we all know this is going to be a big transition we're going to make to being an autonomous church. We're not going to have the village and its resources, and so we, the body, need to be more of a part of different things. And so I guess what I would encourage you to do is, we do have lots of people, like Deanna said, that are doing that today. If you have an area that is something that you're passionate about, or you have expertise or you care about, to reach out to whether it's the staff or an elder or a deacon that's kind of involved in that area, and let them know you want to be involved. I'm sure there's going to be opportunities for that.
And one point that Wilson made earlier that's really significant, and I appreciate you making it, Wilson, is that as we look long-term for the next 5 years, and the point that Wilson made was that as giving towards mission goes up, right, as it goes up as a larger piece of the pie, then our personnel side is going to begin to shrink down. So what does that mean practically? Here's what that means, and I'm really excited about this. It means that the people that are paid to be on staff are primarily going to be responsible for equipping and releasing you as members of the church to do the work of ministry. And so I think what you're going to see is opportunities in the future to do much more, forgive the language, but heavy lifting as it pertains to day-to-day ministry in the church. So a couple of examples, even I think in this year that we've been in. For instance, one that we're seeing now in the worship ministry side is we have Stacy and Jennifer really volunteering as members, maybe with some stipend to them, but certainly not being paid as full-time worship ministers to lead the worship ministry. And that's a good example. We have on our production team volunteers doing incredible work, where previously Chris Crescente was responsible for a lot of that ministry. I'm so proud, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but I'm so proud of the work that we did in Colossians with our men's and women's study. Incredible work that was, for the most part, done by members of the church. And so that pattern is only going to continue. And so as you think about serving, I want you to think about growing and giving more time to the everyday ministries in the church. I also want you to think and pray about, what does it look like to serve the broader community as we develop relationships and partnerships? We want everyone to serve in a significant level. What you're going to see happen, I think, is much less of a staff-led, staff-driven church, and a church that's really driven by its active and involved members. And the role of the staff will be to encourage you, to equip you, to release you to do the important work of the ministry. And so I'm really excited about it. We've got an amazing group of people here that Jesus has faithfully given us, who are very capable of doing some significant. We saw that even this with an alternative to trunk or treat. What an amazing opportunity with the Halloween parade. I want us to see much more of those things in the future. So if you can't cut grass, and I appreciate the offer, or clean up trash around the building, we have significant things that we want you to do in the future. So stay tuned. We will definitely take you up on that offer.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see so many more of you just jumping in ways, even just serving on Sundays. So I love that so many of you are ready to jump in and just be this church and be a part of it and be the hands and feet. And so I'm grateful for that. A question has popped up kind of in regards to what we've been talking about here. It says, how does the worship ministry differ from the technology and production budgets? So worship ministry would fall within our ministry budget, and that does cover, it's going to help provide, like Dave said, stipend for the Hildebrands for the time being, for an interim time, and it covers all of the needs for this team that leads us in worship here, whether that's instruments or just providing for that team and support that they need. And then our technology and production budgets would fall under ministry services, and that's going to cover all of the equipment that it takes, these microphones and the lights and the speakers and the sound and all of these things. It's a significant part of our operational budget, and so that would fall on the ministry services side along with technology, which we would consider, all of our software and computer and hardware and things like that. So those we kind of designate differently, as one is ministry and one is ministry services that's underneath and supporting and helping ministry to happen. So I hope that is helpful for that question. There's a couple more that have popped up. It says, can you give more details on what Redemption Story Church operations budget will cover? What do we need for HR, finance, security, and insurance? So I can answer a little bit of that. So yes, so we are going to be engaging an organization that will help us with our finance needs and also with our HR needs. And so since we are transitioning with a very small operational staff, we are using a lot of those funds to be able to contract out a lot of those services for us, which is going to be incredibly helpful as we transition, especially off this year. So a lot of those processes will remain relatively the same for the time being as we become who we are and see how those processes are going to work out over the next year, and then we'll be able to kind of make changes as we need to, as we see what our needs are as a smaller autonomous church. So they will provide for, like I said, an accounting system, HR systems that will help us process all of those needs and the accountability for all of those, as well as security. So that pays for our security systems for the buildings. It helps provide for our security officer that is available to us for our services. So it just helps in all of those ways. And of course, insurance. We have to have insurance, all of our liability needs and things like that. So hope that answers that question. Is there anything you guys might add to operational budget?
Yeah, I think you said it well. I guess a couple things just to expand on what you said is, as we're rolling off, there's, different things where you can look further and wider for these services. In year one, there's already a lot of new that's coming out. And so with this isn't the first time a church has rolled off the Village Church. So Deanna and team have been working with them, for this last 6 months and have been able to, grow on the lessons learned from the other campuses that have rolled off and some of their providers and how some of those transitions worked. And so there's a lot, to Deanna's point, that we're doing to go, okay, we know this will be okay this year. Let's see how it goes, and we'll revisit it again next year and maybe make a bigger change then. But it's not at the time when 50 other things are changing, if you will.
Great, we've had a few more questions pop up. So someone asks, do we have specific plans for the Catalyst Fund? I will address that to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the Catalyst Fund that's designated towards missions. Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't have those. So those funds wouldn't be included in this budget that was just presented. And so we kind of want to we definitely want to give those out. We want to give them out towards the right opportunity. I know Neil has suggested a couple of ideas to the elders that are probably a little bit premature for us to talk about yet here. But our hope is that the Lord is going to provide us some really great mission opportunities, again, in the realm of church planting, locally and even statewide, maybe nationally, and then internationally, partnering with missionaries to see unreached people groups meet Jesus. And so, yeah, there's nothing specific yet. Those will always go towards mission causes, but we want to be open and prayerfully seeking what the Lord has for us. We know He wouldn't have given us that money if He didn't have purpose for it, and so we can't wait to see where the opportunity intersects with this money that we now have.
Yeah, have we gone through the background on the Catalyst funds?
Yeah, why don't you tell people?
Okay.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, so the Catalyst Fund was something that the Village Church had kind of a pot of money that several years ago they said, hey, let's split this up and kind of have it earmarked for each campus to focus on missions and church planting. It was when the Village was taking a turn to really press into missions and church planting in a heavier way. And so that fund is something that we had our kind of original number that was earmarked for Fort Worth that we've been giving on in gifts, whether that's for missionaries or church plants over the last several years. And so it's one of those things that in the past what it's been is something that when there's a need or there's an opportunity to allow us to kind of jump on something and go, hey, we think the Lord's moving here, let's be a part of it. So I think the hope moving forward, I think it goes to what some of the ideas Neil has brought up, that as we see things that are very missional for us, that it's funds we can use for that. That's kind of not in our day-to-day budget.
I have a related question to tack on there. It says, is there room in the budget for mission expenses to add supported missionaries, add community outreach opportunities, etc.?
Yes, yes, and yes. So as we
Easy to
go
answer
back,
that.
and I don't know if it helps to put that slide back up, Deanna, that has our mission expenses. Maybe you can speak to how much is currently in that amount committed. Does that make sense? How much we've already committed to church planting, existing churches and things like that? And
Sure.
how much may be available for us to determine as we move ahead?
Yeah, I can give approximate numbers on there. Approximately, well, I would say, I believe it's 20 to 25,000 is not specifically designated right now. So we're giving a good portion of that to the church plants. We'll give a good portion to the convention affiliates as well. Our missionaries get gifts throughout the year as well. Let me see if I can find my notes. So yeah, like I said, there's only about 20 to 25,000 of that is not designated toward the different categories that I provided to you there. Our community outreach and missionaries as well. And the benevolent spending as well is all included in that $143,000. That, and then in addition, we'll have the Catalyst Fund as well that will be available for anything that they would see that the Lord would want us to spend that on. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So in other words, if you look at what's earmarked already, that $143,000, approximately $120,000 is already committed towards specific giving next year, and 23 or so is yet to be determined, but it will go towards those categories that are
Exactly.
that the larger buckets are labeled with.
Yes.
In addition to that, as we said earlier, we have the Catalyst Fund for other opportunities that come up to give towards the things that you've already mentioned, community outreach, missions, church planting. So yes, it's an exciting time to think through. The Lord has again given us some funds that we want to be generous with, and now we're just going to pray and seek where He wants us to spend that money for the advancement of His kingdom.
I got a question real quick. So how long are we committed to helping these church plants, Pillar and Northbrook and Omni Fellowship?
That's a great question. So that was Kevin Mitchell here with our live audience. A great question of how long are we committed to the churches that right there that you've seen. So with Northbrook, we have made a commitment through next year. Kevin, the Pillar Church, we had a 2-year commitment of $1,000 a month, which we're 1 year through. So they're committed for 1 more year. And then Omni is one. I can't recall the monthly amount that goes to Omni.
I believe it's 1,000 as well.
Omni right now is in for 1,000. So Kevin, I don't think we have any commitments to these churches that go beyond 2021. Now they're always open and available to come back to us and request a longer runway or future gifts if they'd like that. But that's a great question. You know, I think on the missionary side of that, those are indefinite, long-term commitments. Those are not, none of those I don't believe are expiring anytime soon. We want to continue to support the work that's begun there. Great question.
All right, we have a question here. It says, are there any additional roles that will require a volunteer and or deacon to cover now that we are not a part of TVC? I know that our elders are ever considering new deacon roles and new leadership opportunities. I know there are some in the works even as we speak, and we're continuing to look across our needs and develop new positions for leaders to step up. Would you guys like to speak to any of those?
There's, so again, Wilson's done a really good job of explaining what are we going to lose when we roll off. And what we're going to lose is a lot of area experts and then administrative help that we would have if we stayed connected with Flower Mound. And so if you think about the things that Flower Mound provides for us, we're going to need staff and members combining to work together to continue to provide ministry at that same level, whether that's the studies and the study guides that we've had. If we have something equivalent to the Institute or things like that, we're going to have to come up with that on our own. We've talked a little bit as elders of expanding in the realm of deacon care opportunities within serving our missionaries in the field. We've talked about, and we already have some good work going on there, but we'd like to expand that. We have talked to some extent of wanting to just grow in our diversity as a church and wanting to expand some deacon roles in that area. But so I would say these are really broad categories, but probably the two biggest areas to think through where we need members to work towards a deacon role and come alongside our staff moving forward would be in areas of area experts, putting together things that are kind of niche things, but that as Flower Mound moves and transitions from our relationship with them, we no longer have necessarily in-house the expertise or the manpower, the man-hours to do those things, and then also just the administrative roles. And some of those, as Deanna's already mentioned, we're going to outsource. So we wouldn't expect any of you to come in as deacons and volunteer deacons to be HR experts. That might be a difficult thing. There's probably some laws against that. Maybe not in the Bible, but I think in the state of Texas that might be illegal. But we're going to outsource some things, but for sure we're going to get an assessment of, particularly this next year. It's going to be an exciting year, but I want to ask in advance your patience. It's going to be a challenging year to figure out what it is we need, but we definitely will need some more help. And we really do want to not only increase deacon roles, we're working hard now to just make sure that our deacons who are currently serving as deacons have a larger role in leadership. We want to make sure that our elders and our staff and our deacons are more united moving forward in the area of strategy and even tactics and even just relationally. So we really want to see the role of deacon elevated. And yes, we do need members to step into those roles.
I thought of an example. So something that happened recently is, contractor expertise has been something that we've been able to rely on Flower Mound on. So in some recent stuff where we needed a contractor, we were able to work through some members that had expertise in that area to find the right contractor for the job and some things like that. So that's going to come up. And our answer on what are the different things we need folks for is we're going to be able to tell you a lot better in 6 months than today. And so, if I put myself in someone on staff's shoes, I can think about how the job's going to be different. But really, until we start living it and start going, oh, this is coming up, there's going to be a lot of, hey, we've realized this, we need to be nimble and flexible and reach out and engage the body, but maybe it's not always stuff we're going to be able to look out 6-9 months in advance and plan for until we get a little more used to the new normal.
Let me make an appeal real quick, because as you're thinking through this, and these are really good questions, these are encouraging questions to field. That
For sure.
It's exciting to hear that you're interested in serving these other areas. I don't want you to forget the obvious things, because those will always be our greatest needs. We always need more people who feel called and want to love our children. What a great opportunity we have to make disciples. The Great Commission is primarily executed in this church with our ministry to next generation. We need you to serve in those areas. We always need more home group leaders. We always need more folks that want to help us in connections. And so one of the things that I think we're going to be challenged by, I don't have the crystal ball either, Wilson, but you can kind of see that we've been on pause for the most part through the global pandemic. I heard the good news today by the very authoritative source of Dr. Fauci that by April or June, I don't know what happened to May in that construct, but that we're going to be back to normal. What's going to happen is we're going to become an independent church. The entirety of ministry programming is going to start to then ramp back up in its entirety around Easter next year. And a lot of positions that currently haven't been filled, that we haven't had to rely upon, are going to immediately become needs. And so would you just pray about that? We always can use more volunteers in those critical areas. The nuts and bolts of the ways that we go about and the basic ministries that we provide in making disciples aren't going to change that much, and we always need more help in those areas. So please pray about that. Think about that.
Definitely. A couple of questions that kind of continue along the minister or the missions line is, one is, what is the reason to give money to the SBC or Acts 29? I'll let you guys address that really quickly before I add the next one.
Yeah, so one of the things is to be a part of the SBC, and that's something that we've been a part of now at the Village Church for probably since our inception, I would think, and that we want to stay connected to, is to be a contributing member. And so the money that we give to the SBC helps across many categories. One would be to giving to the cooperative program and sending missionaries out in the field. Other things would be just even the different services the denomination provides, whether that's seminary education or helping us understand biblically ethics and current events. So there's all the things that happen that the SBC provides. And I'd encourage you, if you haven't looked at that before, go online and research that a little bit. The Acts 29 money goes towards providing money for areas, and we can talk about that at another time, but Acts 29 now, in addition to having a South Central region, which we'll be a part of, we'll have areas that might look like Tarrant County might be an area. So the money that we give towards Acts 29 ultimately will make its way into Tarrant County with the Acts 29 churches that exist in Tarrant County working together to collaborate to plant other churches in the area. And so that money as well will go towards furthering church plants. So there may be instances like you've seen in the 3 churches that we support directly. We just support those directly. That money doesn't go to Acts 29, that goes directly to those churches, and we want to continue to do so. I would say the majority of our money that we give towards church planting, we want to do it that way. But then Acts 29 asks 1% a year of our total revenue that goes towards funding Acts 29 both domestically and internationally.
And then also there's a question, how was Omni chosen, or why Omni?
Yeah, that's Omni. If you haven't been to Omni yet, or you don't know Valentine, he's a really good guy. He came and he, through really a relationship that I had with him, and I think some of the others on our staff had, he came and spoke with our elders. I can't recall when that was, Wilson. This whole year has been a blur.
A year and a half ago, I
Yeah,
guess.
it had to be prior to COVID. And just to ask for our help. Omni is a church in Cedar Hill. It's a multi-ethnic church. It was planted by Stonegate in Midlothian. And Valentine particularly just needed to have some budget support in order to solidify a meeting space. But then also, and this is often the case with church planters, it takes one to know one, we're not very administratively talented. And so in order for the ministry to go forward, a lot of times there needs to be administrative help. And so I know that Valentine, and I think you even helped train and connect with the woman that he ultimately hired to be his administrative assistant. And so a lot of these opportunities just come to us. You'd be surprised how many requests we get in the course of a month or a year. Can you support this work? Can you support that work? And unless it's just something that we're not philosophically or theologically committed to, usually our elders will pray about that and see where the Lord wants to lead. Now, in the future, I hope that the churches that we plant are much more internal than that. They look much more like Northbrook. There are members being called out and being sent out to plant churches in the area. But we also want to always be mindful of opportunities within our region and globally to support work that's already ongoing.
Okay, we have a question from a concerned youth. It says, will we get pizza back on Wednesday nights? The big important questions, yes. We will leave that to Mr. Sadolkin and his student department budget. But we hope that you will help us to understand that we want to be good stewards of that money and do that in a way that's going to best make disciples in our student ministry. But we hope that as that ministry grows under Tim's care and guidance, that hopefully you'll be able to have great food and opportunities to fellowship along with all of the ministry that he's going to provide.
Tim is here with us tonight. He just happens
Yes.
to be doing double duty in the back and doing
Yes.
coaching. Tim, do you have an answer to that question? I can pass it on.
DiGiorno.
DiGiorno.
I like it.
Nice. All right, there you have it, DiGiorno.
DiGiorno for dinner.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
If there are no other questions from the audience here, I do have one other Slido question to ask us tonight. It's by a gentleman named Randy Fuller. It says, when will I have an opportunity to make a motion that our pastoral ministerial staff receive a 10% increase in pay across the board?
Is he speaking to Northbrook? Is that what
You
he's
know,
saying?
I think he
That
might
sounds
be
like
slightly
an
confused.
internal
I'm not
issue
sure.
for him and Jake and Reed to figure out.
For sure, yes. Well, we appreciate that question, Randy. Thank you so much.
Just a quick note, since Randy was kind enough, and I trust that's actually him, that sent that question. You never know with these things. A really cool thing happened this week. Randy and Jake came out from Northbrook to lead our very first Restore. If you're not familiar with Restore is the concept that all the village church staff gets together once a month and just pauses in the regular rhythms of our work to worship, to have a devotional, to spend time together. And we had our very first ever Redemption Story Church Restore as the Village Church Fort Worth, and Randy and Jake were super faithful to come out and service, and I know Sarah Osborne did as well. And we just, I was under quarantine. My test came back negative. I'm okay, so I didn't get to participate in that, but I heard it was fantastic. And so we love Randy and Jake very much. We're very excited about Northbrook and really grateful for the good work. And hey, you know, Randy, at Northbrook, you and Jake, you talk Reed into it, and you can take 25% as far as I'm concerned. Just don't get me in trouble.
Yeah, I can't say how grateful I am to Jake and Randy for coming and leading us. It was a very beautiful and meaningful time. And then also, as Dave said, we just had, we were prayed over and provided for and served so well by Sarah Osborne, and we're grateful to have her come and just bless us in that way. So I'm very grateful for that. That concludes our questions. I'll just remind you again, our budget vote is going to be on December 6th. It's going to be in a similar way as you've seen the other votes for this year. It'll be via email. So if you're a covenant member of the Village Church, you'll be receiving that email ballot, and you'll need to vote for it on that day, on December 6th. That's a Sunday. And then our elders will take that vote and use that to approve, hopefully, this budget for the coming year. Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
No, just again, thank you so much for your generosity. It's been such an amazing year. I don't think any of us anticipated that we would be in this position at the end of the year. And just thank you for being faithful. Thank you for loving the church enough to care about budgets and things that really are important. And so I know if questions maybe come up in the days to come. I know if you're like me, you're a process thinker. Any suggestions there, Deanna, for follow-up questions that people might have before the 6th when we vote, where to direct those?
Certainly, you're welcome to come to me. I know our elders would also be glad to answer any questions that you might have. The recording of this will be available over the next few weeks for any that would like to go back and listen or maybe watch it for the first time. All of this is also going to be made available on our website, so if you want to look back over these slides, if there's any other information that you would like to have, I would be glad to fill any gaps for you or provide any numbers or things like that I can. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Just one last thing. So I want to thank Wilson so much, along with Ife Ongaleye and Robert Fuquay, for just the way they serve as volunteer elders. They just do such important work, and I know that finances aren't always what you signed up for when you became an elder, but they're so faithful, and I can speak on behalf of our staff. We feel so loved and cared for by these godly men who pastor us well, and so love you guys, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Ife. Thank you, Robert.
Well, I will sign us out for this evening. Thank you all for joining us and participating online. And like I said, please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions. Hope you have a good night.